Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup, though.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
A guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that P2 lead, 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
And hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon and good evening to you all. And we are of course here today for a beautiful race in PSGL F8. We are here for of course round 10 of 12 here at Mexico. The championship is looking very great right now. The championship is very tight. Of course we haven't saw Chesler, our championship leader, here for the last few races. He is not here again, which will be a crucial moment for, of course, the second place driver of Sem, who is here today. He is available again, so he will again to try look to make that gap between him and Jesler a lot smaller heading into the final 2 rounds. Of course, this week is Mexico, next week is China. The last Grand Prix still yet to be decided for all PlayStation and PC tiers, of course, except for Division 1. But yeah, if you don't know who I am, you can see my name just below. I am Cameron Dawn. Of course, I am your PSGL F8 commentator. I will be alone today as Ace cannot make it. But as you can see, you can also see me, which I'm thankful for this to happen because I've now got the equipment to do so. So it's nice being able to, publicize. I've said that so wrong. It's nice to show who I am and also to level up the streams because of course the streams deserve to be the top quality in PSGL. So yeah, really happy with that. And yeah, of course we are here today for F8, The championship is getting very close because of EA with a new update today. Because of, I don't know how you say it, an incident which has happened. All drivers today will be in multiplayer cars. They've somehow messed up the cars again, and the cars, like Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, and so on, are not equal anymore. So, yeah, so today we will be in the multiplayer cars, so I might get a bit confused with who's in which team corresponding to, the Constructors' Championship, because that is very, very tasty. If you don't know what the Constructors looks like, the top 4 teams, all within, I believe, 10 points of one another. It's so, so close. As, yeah, it's a 10-point gap between Red Bull, Alpine, AlphaTauri, and McLaren. Red Bull on 96 points, Alpine on 93 points, AlphaTauri on 89, and McLaren on 86. So pretty much for definite, with 4 teams being involved in the championship fight. But we are just going to quickly go to a little advertisement by, of course, PSGL's main title sponsor of GT Omega, and then we will be back in time for the start of qualifying here in Mexico of PSGL F8. So, oh, why is this? Oops, sorry people, this should not be a problem, but I don't know what's happened. Bear with me people, something's happened here. What is this? Sorry people, I am completely unsure of what's happened here. All of a sudden the screen got much, much larger. That's never happened before. Anyway, sorry for that little issue. We are here. Unfortunately, attendance isn't looking the greatest for today. As you can see, it's only 13 drivers, but of course, the drivers are in their own livery. Felix is the first driver. He's in a nice gold and blue / purple livery there, going through the first few corners. We'll do a quick little run through of what the track looks like. So Mexico, consisting of 17 corners with 3 DRS straights. Of course, that massive run down into turn 1, that major DRS zone of the elevation change. Of course, it gets the highest at turn 6, and you have 3 DRS zones, 7 corners to the left, 10 corners to the right. The lap record, of course, being set in 2021 by Valtteri Bottas with a 1 minute 17.774. The track is 4.304 kilometers long, or 2.674 miles long. And of course, we have a short qualifying here, an 18-minute qualifying session, and then we will be underway for 36 laps here at Mexico for the F1 Gran Premio de la Ciudad the Mexico Grand Prix. I had to make sure to get that right. However, Felix is now going round turn 16 and turn 17 to be the first driver to start his lap time. So we will ride on board with him to see what he can do on his lap time. So he's opening up the DRS for the first time. This straight being so powerful, reaching top speeds of over 200 miles per hour. As you can see, he's currently at 206 miles per hour. And now entering into turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3 of the S's Moises. Sorry, I don't know what's happened there, people. Sorry, the screen just went black all of a sudden for me. So yeah, round turn 1, 2, and 3 of the Esses Moises Solana, then down the second DRS straight of the Recta Transera, and now round turn 4 and 5 of the Esse del Lago, and round turn 6 of the Horquilla, now entering into probably one of the toughest sectors on the Mexico track, turn 7 to turn 11, otherwise known as the S's, as Felix now goes round turn 9, turn 10, and turn 11, and he does it very nicely indeed. And now entering onto the third DRS straight, and the final DRS straight of the Recta del Ovalo, and then round turn 13 of the Fora Sol, and round turn 14, 15, and the final two corners, turn 16 and turn 17, Perel Talda. It's Felix across the line to finish the first lap. It will be a 16.315 for him. It's then followed by Oscar, who is starting a lap time. It's so tough to know who's on the lap now. Dankos is next. He is starting a lap 2. It's then Scabby, who has broke his wing near the end of the lap, so it's not great for him. I believe we then have Nerazinho next. No, BR4 next, finishing a lap time. Then followed by Nerazinho, who seems to be on a flying lap, and it's going to be across the line for him, and it'll be a 16.726. As we then have another car of Jakku starting a lap, sorry, he will be next across the line. We then have Jimmy, who's finishing a lap time. WR Jimmy, of course, across the line. It will be P2. It's not beating Felix right now. It's a 16.409 for him. And we have many more drivers finishing their lap times now. We have Alpha Gully going up into P3 with a 16.482. We have other drivers like Jordan, who goes up into provisional pole position. It's a 16.167 for the Alpine driver. Of course, he has the special Alfa Romeo livery on, but then we have the man who's fighting for the championship, Sem, going up into provisional pole 4 now with the first driver in the 15s. It's a 15.940 for the McLaren driver. Of course, we'll also be looking to try score some good points for McLaren as they try to fight for both championships. Sem's gap to Jesler, by the way, just so you know the points wise, 89 points is what Jesler currently sits on. Sem currently sits on 77. So how the point system works, Sem, if he gets P2 today, he will be tied with Jesler going into China next round. If Sem wins today, he will be ahead of Jesler by 4 points. He will be on 93 points going in to next week, next Monday, for China, which I think Jesler will be participating in. So that just makes the championship even more spicier than it already is. But then there's another man who decides to beat Sem for provisional pole, which is BR4, sitting a 15.920, 200ths faster than Sem. He's going to go up into P1. There's other drivers finishing lap times, like IRT Seb, who goes up into P5 with a 16.351 with a beautiful IRT livery, which I like to see there, the nice blue and white livery. Jakku finished the lap time. He went up into P7 with a 16.444, and Danko Satila finished the lap. He went up into P8 with a 16.462, just short of beating Jakku, and also just ahead of having beaten Alpha Gully. Quite a few people rocking the livery, but no doubt about it, because it is a absolutely beautiful livery with the Italian flag on the side of it, of course, for the special livery for Monza and Imola. As Stellius is now into the third sector, currently has a 57.089 in the second sector, first and second sector combined. It's Nastellius going around the final few corners now and entering into turn 16, turn 17 of Peraltada. What can Stellius do on his first flying lap today? It's looking good, and it's going to be a 16.433, and it will put him up into P7, which looks to be right now around the mid pack as he goes 11 thousandths ahead of Jakku and just short of 300ths behind WR Jimmy. As of course now everyone has finished their first lap times, I believe. It's actually no, Jordan is on another lap time, sorry, and I did not see that. And Jordan has improved by over 2 tenths, and ironically sits the exact same lap time as Sem. So two drivers now on a 15.940. Both are 200ths behind BR4. Wow, those are some laps there between that top three so far, and this is only the first lap, ladies and gentlemen. So we are definitely going to see a very interesting qualifying here with a very small grid. As, yeah, just to say as well, BR4 Sem Jordan, they are the top drivers racing with us here today. We actually have second down to sixth racing with us today. We have Sem in second on 77 points. We then have BR4 in third in the championship on 63 points. Then Jordan in P4 on 54 points. Then moving up 3 positions from last week, we then have ETA Oscar, who of course you may know as being formerly CPI Furheim. He left CPI, became Oscar Furheim, and now has joined the ETA esports team and is now ETA Oscar. So definitely gonna have to remember about that. He moves up 3 positions after a very nice race. I believe a P2 finish or a win last week. I think it was a win. A win in Jeddah for him moves him up 3 positions. He's now sitting on 42 points in P5, and then following him is Jimmy, who is in P6 on 40 points. So they will definitely be fighting today for P5 in the championship, of course, with 2 races to go. As Oscar will be starting his lap time now, going round the final few corners. It will be interesting to see what he can do. Alpha Gully is on a lap. He is also rocking that Alfa Romeo livery. It's definitely a beautiful livery, but quite a lot of drivers are using it. However, Alpha Gully currently half a tenth down in the first sector, as he now enters into the difficult S's section of turn 7 to turn 11. Will he bin it or will he keep it clean? It looks like he will keep it clean. There was no invalidation there for the TGT esports driver. However, he is over 2.5 tenths down in his lap time, a quarter of a second down in his lap time. It doesn't look like he will be improving, and he definitely has to be, because his times are still quite far off compared to the other drivers of the field. Alpha Gully around the final corner. He manages to improve in the last sector. He finds 3 tenths in the final sector. I mean, round of applause just for finding 3 tenths in the last sector to Alpha Gully, but definitely room for improvement there. But it does promote him up into P7. And this grid between, say, P5 and P10 right now is nearly separated by only a tenth, which sees Alpha Gully actually move up to P7 with a 16.423. But then there is Furheim, there is Oscar, who goes now up into provisional pole. He beats BR4 by nearly a tenth of a second, a 15.843 for the ET8 driver. It's a brilliant lap time, of course, being in that special McLaren livery. He is, however, the Aston Martin driver. Aston Martin currently sitting P6 in the constructors, so nearly the best of the rest. But then somebody decides to go even faster. Who's the man looking to try take the championship lead today? And that is Sem, who goes up into P1 with a 15.697. He goes nearly a tenth and a half clear of Oscar. It's a absolutely brilliant lap time there from Sem, who is of course the ex esports driver. Is a brilliant lap time there, and we will definitely be looking to see if other drivers can improve, like BR4, who currently is over a tenth up on his lap time. But then there's a surprise shock, as there's another new man on 15.627. But we have to go back to BR4, who's coming across the line now. Is he going to be able to go even faster? Yes, he is. A tenth and a half improvement. He will go ahead of Oscar for P3, but he will not move up any more positions. It will be a 15.756 for him. It will see him just go short of a tenth clear of Oscar, but he still has around half a tenth to catch to get to Sem, and then over a tenth to get to beat Jimmy, who all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, I would say, really, goes up into provisional pole with 6 minutes left in the session. It'll be very interesting to see what the other times are going to be set. I'm just trying to figure out who is currently on a lap time. As Seb, he improved to a 16.351. I did see that, but hasn't moved him up many positions. Jordan is on a lap time, and he's already flying, I believe, as into the first sector. He is 3.5 tenths up. So Jordan is already on a lap to potentially take pole position. He just has to keep the second and third sector clean. Will he be able to do so? Well, we're just going to have to wait and find out, as we still have another sector and a half following on board with Jordan, who's of course on this absolutely flying lap. 3.5 tenths improvement will put him in contention to be maybe a tenth ahead of Jimmy as it stands. As entering sector 2, Jordan is only a tenth and a half up now, so he's lost a monumental amount of time through turn 7 to turn 11 in the second sector, and now only a tenth and a half improvement will see him just go ahead of Oscar, but probably only going to be P4 unless he can find more time in the last corners. But he spins on the last corner of turn 17, and it's a heartbreak for Jordan, who of course was on a brilliant lap time. He is now going to have to enter the pit lane, and he will have to go for only one final time. As then Jaku out of nowhere, also the ex esports driver, goes up into P2 with a 15.651. It's a absolutely brilliant lap time there from Jaku, who of course shown absolutely great pace yet last week in Jeddah, as he currently sits P12 in the championship. Of course, he is a Haas driver alongside Jimmy. So technically right now, we are seeing in Haas 1-2 in qualifying, which is unbelievable, seeing that Haas is P5 in the constructors. They are technically the best of the rest when we count out the top 4, who of course are clear of most of the other teams. The gap between McLaren and Haas, by the way, if you're wondering, McLaren on 86 points. Of course, those drivers are Sem and Bunty, and then P5 Haas is, of course, consists of Jimmy and Jaku. 26 points of a gap is the gap between those two teams. 26 points. Haas being on 60, as of course Jaku will be entering the pit lane. He will be very happy with that lap time, and he will now be going into the pit lane, putting on a new, fresh set of tyres, and then be going out for one final lap time, I imagine. Alpha Gully currently on the lap, of course, the TGT esports driver. The question is, what will he be able to do? As he currently is in the midst of Sector 2, nearly approaching turn 7 into turn 11, of course. As for some reason, bear with me, as I can't seem to get the quality up as much as Alpha Gully has invalidated on his lap time. So he's not finding the pace right now, and he is somewhat struggling because that is an invalidation there for the TGT esports driver, as he is cutting all the corners in order to get back into the pit lane. Definitely could be reportable, especially if he speeds into the pit lane, which he does. So if anyone wants to report that, go ahead. I, of course, can't, but I'm not stopping anyone from doing it themselves. I don't know when Scabby retired, but Scabby at the back in P13 has retired with a 16.468. He will be starting last. I don't know when that happened, but most of the drivers are now coming out the pit lane. They will be starting their final lap times very, very soon. I'm just trying to find out who is going to be the first driver. And, funnily enough, it will be the McLaren driver of Sem, who, of course, I've repeated and repeated it. Sem will be looking to take the championship lead today. He's going to look to make that gap to Jesler much, much smaller because, of course, he didn't have the greatest of races last week in Jeddah, having too many incidents. He did score quite a few points. I believe it was like a P6 or P7 finish for the McLaren driver, but nothing which makes the championship more intense. But currently, it looks like he might have the pace to make that championship fight a lot more interesting between him and Jesler going into the final 2 rounds. So Sem entering into the second sector, he is just under a tenth up on his lap time. So already that is going to be pole position. But of course, we do not know if Jimmy and Jakku will improve. Even other drivers like Oscar, BR4, Jordan. There's so many drivers right now who could be in contention for pole position. It's just a matter of will they be able to set the lap, the proper lap, with all sectors completed correctly, or will they invalidate on their lap time? Sem doesn't look to be doing that right now because entering sector 3, he is over a tenth and a half up on his lap time. Currently, it looks like a mid 0.5. However, of course, that can change in the last few corners as he goes round turn 15 and the final 2 corners of turn 16 and turn 17. What will Sem be able to do in his final lap? Across the line, it's going to be a 15.502. It's a brilliant lap time for the McLaren driver, which will see him go a tenth clear of Jimmy. But the question is, are they up on their lap time? Jimmy is already a tenth up in the first sector alone, so he can definitely look to potentially beat Sem for that pole position. But however, who is the furthest ahead driver on track? I'm not entirely sure, as the checkered flag is now being flying about. So it'll be very interesting to see because of course Sem has completely finished his lap time. I just don't know who the other drivers are who have completed their final lap times. Jordan has entered the pit lane. He invalidated his final lap time, so it's a heartbreak for the Alpine driver who currently sits P4 in the stands. He is only going to be P7 at the highest as Felix, the reserve driver, the ex-esports driver, goes up into P6 with a 15.852. Oscar improves to P4. He beats BR4. It's a 15.711 for him. Jimmy has retired in the pit lane. He will not improve in his lap time, and neither will Jakku. Jakku is also entering the pit lane to retire. BR4 is also retiring as he has invalidated his lap time. So all of a sudden, the pressure has fallen to all the drivers in the last lap, and Sem keeps it composed, and it's going to be the man fighting for the championship on pole position. Wow, wow, wow. That is a qualifying. Of course, we still can't count out drivers like Seb and Dankos and Alpha Gully. Alpha Gully being the really own driver who's finishing a lap time. He does improve, but it will only be P12 for Alpha Gully. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is qualifying over. Sem is on pole position, followed by the two Haas drivers in P2 and P3. They're looking very comfortable there. Then followed by Oscar, ETA Oscar, of course, then BR4, then the reserve driver Felix, followed by Jordan, the Alpine driver, Dankos, the reserve driver, Seb, the reserve driver, then Nerazinho, Stelius, Alpha Gully, and Scabby at the back of the 13 driver grid today here at Mexico in F8, as we will be right back very shortly for the start of the race as we get another little advertisement video from the main title sponsor of PSGL, GT Omega. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Of course, we just had the qualifying, which we saw Sem on pole position. We are now here in a very dull race. The weather does not look the greatest. Maybe rain in the race. We're going to have to wait and find out. The strategies here today for the 36 laps will be very interesting because quite a few of the strategies are very, very similar in pace. That being soft medium, medium soft, medium hard, and hard medium. They are all within about, well, they're all within about 2 to 3 tenths of each other in pace. So we're going to see such a muddle. We're going to see such a muddle up of strategies here today. It literally could be anyone's race today because the pace will all be similar for the tyres. It's just how the drivers use them and save them, as hopefully we will be underway very, very shortly. As I'm just noticing, game sound is not working, I believe, unless there's just no game sound at this certain point in the game. I think there's just no game sound now because I have saw the game sound has been working. I could be wrong though, but hopefully it will be working as we are here, of course, for lights out as we have 4 and 5 lights out. And it is lights out and away we go. And who is going to get the better start? Is it going to be Sam or will it be Jimmy? And it's going to be very, very close. It looks to be Sam, however. But Jimmy instantly tucking into the DRS. Not the DRS, the slipstream of Sam. And will he look for a move for the lead of the race? It's possible. And yes, he will. And there is contact. And Jimmy is off. And he is round. Jimmy falls to the back of the grid all of a sudden. Sam leading the way. But then there's a fight for P2 between Jakku and BR4. And Felix is even following through, trying to get up into P3. Is BR4 trying to look for positions as here comes Jordan with an absolutely massive send and he takes out Felix and BR4 in the process. So all of a sudden we've just saw 4 of the top drivers in qualifying fall to the back of the grid as everyone is trying to get those tyres heated as we're seeing so many side-by-sides throughout the whole field. As we see a side-by-side there between, I don't know, there's some drivers going off track. I'm utterly confused with what's happening. However, what I do know is that Sem has already got a 1.8 second lead to Jakku ahead. It's absolutely incredible. Now extending the gap to Jakku as then Oscar follows him behind in P3. And can we talk about Scabby, by the way, who has avoided all of that and has now went from P13 to P4 already in this race. He's gained in 9 positions out of nowhere. It's absolutely unbelievable with what he's done. I don't know how he's done it. But wow, 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 what a race. What a start to the race, sorry. I said that completely wrong. I cannot believe that. Nerzinho and Ankos are into the pit lane, both for front wing changes, as let's actually get the tyres up to see maybe why some drivers have had such a good start. Maybe this is why Sem is flying away, because Sem is going for the different strategy. He is on those medium competent tyres compared to Jakku and Oscar following him behind on the hards. It's in Scabby and Seb behind on the mediums, BR4 Alpha Gully on the hards, and then Jimmy, Felix, Jordan, Stelius all the mediums, and now Nerzinho being on new mediums and Dankos now being on new soft compound of tyres. Of course, the softs are C4, the mediums are C3, and the C2 are the hards. So all very different, all vary in different lengths and grip, of course. As I'm struggling to figure out why there is no game sound, because there's supposed to be game sound. Bear with me, everyone, for a second. Maybe changing it to cinematic. I'm not entirely sure. It's the game sound should be there. I'm just not entirely sure. Sem is still leading the way, however. A 2.6 second gap to Jakku as DRS is now enabled. And who is going to be the first driver to get DRS? It will hopefully be BR4. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening with the game sound here, everyone. I done test streams and the sound was working fine. So I'm not entirely sure why this is not working. But it has been alright, so I'm a bit confused to what is happening here and why there's no game sound. However, what I do know is that this will already be a very intense race. We can see Sem, of course, flying away, but those are on the mediums. The mediums last a lot shorter than the hards, but will have much more grip. However, there's a spin in the sector 2, and it is Felix, the ex-esports driver, has spun round. That is in the second sector. We see him now fall down to P11 5.6 seconds behind Stellies, who currently sits in P10, following Jordan. It's now, of course, with DRS being enabled, we're going to see many, many DRS chains like this one right here, which is going to be the battle for P5 all the way down to what could potentially be P10 very, very soon, which is BR4 gaining on the back of Seb, who is currently sitting in P5. Alpha Gully being very, very close to the rear of BR4 as Felix has decided to retire from this race already. So maybe, I don't know, it's a bit confusing to why he has retired this early into the race. My guess would be potentially rear wing damage. I'm not entirely sure. As Neres and Yodankos having a few sounds speaker type for the sound. It's always on auto. Hello, GFO Esports for the sound. It's always on auto, mate. It's not. It's not that broadcast as well. It's not that because that's been suggested in the PSGL commentary chats. It's better for just the race in general. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm just a bit annoyed because, of course, like I said, I done test streams. Hello, JFO, however. If anyone's tuning in now, hello and welcome to PSGL F8. Sorry that there's no game sound, and sorry that the quality of the stream is so low. However, something which I will ask is give a subscribe and a like to the stream, a subscribe to the PSGL channel, and a like to the stream because, of course, we are trying to grow F8 as much as we possibly can because there is a intense championship battle going towards the end of this season 34 as Alpha Gully and Jimmy are showing some beautiful battling here between P7 and P8 as Jimmy is trying to look to go for the move around the outside potentially as there is contact between them and Jimmy has been somewhat spun round there by Alpha Gully and he's trying to not make contact with Jordan as there's four drivers there. All these four drivers are with the Alfa Romeo livery. Alpha Gully, Jordan, Jimmy, and Stellius. That is the funniest thing I've ever saw before. GFO, I'm not changing it because that's the default settings. It's not the auto, which isn't making it work because I've always had it on auto and it always works. So it's not that as the issue. As of course Sem cruising away right now ahead of Jakku, who's of course trying to somewhat keep the distance shorter because it has gained by a second or two in the last few laps. So he'll definitely be looking to try manage that gap. However, Scabby might look for a move here for the podium position, getting past Oscar. Yes, he will with much more speed. However, he's had a snap there into the first few corners, and Oscar may look for a beautiful switchback here on Scabby as he is, of course, on the hards, but Scabby's on the mediums. But Oscar decides to turn the DRS off, change it to night mode. It won't work. Okay, I will change it now and show you that it will not work, just so you can see. There we go. So that gap between Jakku and Sem's just gained by 5 tenths already this lap, but Scabby and Oscar have now also lost a monumental amount of time to Jakku behind as well. As you can hear, there is nothing. So it's not that as the issue. I'm not entirely sure what is. Like I said, I have tested previously, so it's a bit weird how it's not working. But oh well, I will try get it fixed for the last few weeks. Although I thought I did have it fixed, but clearly I haven't. However, BR4 is under immense pressure here by Seb. He is on those medium tyres, of course. He has turned DRS off early, though, as BR4 has locked up massively into the first few corners there. And Seb might be able to look for a beautiful switchback here and potentially turning on the ERS and the DRS and looking to try get a move done up into P4, down into turn 4 and 5, sorry, as Seb does get past, and the RT driver, the reserve driver, I should say, is now up into P5 of this Grand Prix. So, looking very good for Seb now. Of course, brilliant race so far for Scabby, who, of course, has went from Let me get the position changes. He's went up 10 positions already. He went up 9 in the first lap! I've jinxed him. Oh no, I've done the biggest jinx ever. Scabby, from the podium position, has spun round down into P10. I don't think I can do a better jinx. That's. Oh, I'm so annoyed have managed to do that. I don't know, but Oscar will now be. Well, he'll now have to manage that 1 second gap to Seb because Seb's on those mediums. For BR4 is gaining on Seb, and it's a easy move for him. Of course, the powerful DRS helps BR4 massively there, going into turn one, having around 20 to 25 more miles per hour of speed to overtake the opposing driver. Seb's actually went slightly off the track there, and Jimmy using the RS, he's gonna go look for the move down into turn 4 and turn 5, and Seb backs out, and just like that, Alpha Gully is up into P5. I think I didn't say Alpha Gully, so I'm sorry for that, but Alpha Gully is now up into P5, overtaking Seb for that position. Jimmy also very, very close to the rear of Seb. Seb having quite a few mistakes now. Seb's nearly went off track. His tyres are definitely cooking, but cooking in the wrong way because there goes Jimmy with a beautiful switchback in the S's section of turn 7 to turn 11, especially turn 9, turn 10, and turn 11. And just like that, Jimmy is now up into P6 of the Grand Prix. As we look just at the gaps right now and how drivers are managing the gaps, Oscar is managing to somewhat gain on Jakku ahead in P2 currently. Sem is beautifully managing that gap though to Jakku. He probably wants the gap to be much larger though, which will be the crucial part to whether or not he will be able to do so and maybe get it to somewhat like 6, maybe 7 seconds. Scabby has unfortunately retired in the pit lane. It was such a good start for the former NLR driver, but now he retires in the pit lane after, of course, that spin at turn 8, I believe, turn 8, turn 9, it was in around there. So, yeah, definitely very unfortunate for him. As, yeah, I was talking about the amount of time Sim wants to have two drivers behind because the pit loss time around here at Mexico is 20.5 seconds. 20.5 seconds is the pit loss time. So, say if Sim was the pit right now, he would come out in beautiful fresh air in between Jordan and Narazinho. So, he would be P9. So Sem, of course, will have to manage when he will want to pit. If he is doing medium hard, he will look to probably pit in around lap 17. If he wants to undercut, go before 17, overcut is over 17. Or the faster strategy, medium soft, go 21 laps on the mediums, followed by 15 laps on the softs. That is the optimal medium soft strategy. If he decides to go for it, the drivers on the hard compound tyres, though, I'll be very, very surprised if they go into the softs because hard softs is one of the slow strategies on this track. It is actually the slowest strategy. As Alpha Gully making the move past a BR4 now up into P4. Alpha Gully didn't start as high in this Grand Prix as well. Yeah, he started down in P12. He was second last. And he is now also on a charge up into P4. As now Jimmy is trying to look for a move on BR4. There is slight bit of contact between the two drivers. And potentially BR4 might even look for a move on Alpha Gully soon. As Alpha Gully is doing beautiful defending. But Jimmy's looking for the double move. Is he going to get it done? It's absolutely beautiful from Jimmy. He gets the double move done on Alpha Gully and BR4 through turn 4, 5, and 6. Even turn 7 involved as well. So wow, wow, wow. What a few moves there from the WR Esports driver. It's brilliant battling and clean battling too, which is the important bit about that. As the gaps are becoming much more sufficient now. They're becoming much larger. Jimmy now nearly 3 seconds behind Oscar who's ahead, and I can definitely see Jimmy being overtaken by 2, maybe 3 cars here, because he has no ERS whatsoever, and all the other drivers behind have DRS and slipstream. As here goes Alpha Gully past, and here comes BR4, who is gaining rapidly on Jimmy, and is going to send it up the inside. Is there going to be contact between the two drivers? Thankfully, there's not, as BR4 is going to potentially try look for a switchback move into turn 4 and turn 5. He does have the ERS on, and he's using the slipstream, including the DRS too, and it looks like he will be able to get past, as Jimmy is going to try stick the car up the inside. They are still going to continue going side by side. It is somewhat beautiful battling between the two, but it looks like BR4 will retake the position of Jimmy. Yes, he will. BR4 back up into P5. It's a brilliant move there from him, as the gap up ahead still staying the same between Sem and Jakku. It's now 5 seconds, so it has actually somewhat been extended by nearly a second. So clearly, the pace difference between the drivers and also the tyres, which we have to remember as well, mediums compared to hards, means Sem is able to currently fly away in the lead, of course, after the chaos in lap 1. Now, that'll be Alpha Gully leading this DRS train from P4 to P7. This is the ideal place you want to be, because this DRS train will now just, they'll be able to save their ERS mostly, and also just stay within a sufficient range of the drivers ahead, as BR4 is gaining on Alpha Gully. Will he be close enough to look for a move though? No, he will not. The gap was much larger than it has been, but that means BR4 will not be able to look for any move as it stands right now. Second DRS straight, no moves happening as of yet as well. Stelios is having quite a few moments right now, because that gap was 1.2 seconds, now 1.8, so Stelios slightly falling behind here. Doesn't look like he will be getting DRS anytime soon, unless he can magically gain around 9 tenths a second potentially on the drivers ahead, unless it's like a massive incident or something. As Jordan's also trying to stay up behind Stellis, but he is even struggling himself, and that's on the medium tyres. But then we look to the front to Sem, who is cruising away with like a 11.5 second gap to the other medium drivers behind of Jimmy, Seb, Stellius, and the others following them. So hello to anyone who's just joined in as well. We're here, of course, for PSGL F8. We are here in Mexico for round 10 of round 12, where of course we see Sem currently lead the way with a very nice 5.3 second gap. Is actually, we're seeing some tough battling here between P4 to P6, and of course this is with the support of the DRS. Of course, Alpha Gully has dropped 2 positions, and BR4 and Jimmy both go past him. However, will Jimmy potentially look for a move on BR4? He will not be able to do so. So now all of a sudden Alpha Gully is down from P4 down to into P6 as Jimmy is looking for a switchback here on BR4. He's going to potentially send up the inside of turn 6. Can he potentially get it done though, as BR4 slightly goes off the track, but Jimmy will not be able to get past BR4 as it stands right now, because BR4 will stay in P4. Quite funny there. However, BR4 is taking defensive lines here, and Jimmy is having to slow down, which has given Alpha Gully a much closer striking range to the drivers ahead, as Jimmy is gaining all over the back of BR4, but he is just going to play it smart and wait until the main straight, which he will definitely fly past BR4 as it stands right now. As Stelios has managed to get in that 1 second range of the other drivers, by the way, and that's all because of the turn 1 battling which we saw, turn 1 through to turn 3. So now it's a 4th to 9th DRS train, as BR4 of course is in the way, but Jimmy is going to fly past him and now up into P4 on those medium tyres. Of course, may Alpha Gully follow him? No, he's going to be too far back to look for any potential move right now. But Jimmy is trying to back up the field here a little bit. BR4 is behind. He's not turned the DRS on. As Seb has spun. He spun on the exit of turn 3 there. We saw him have a little moment there on the exit, and it's going to be unfortunate for the IRT driver, because he now falls dramatically and very, very far behind from the other drivers ahead. He's now 8.2 seconds behind the drivers ahead. It's so unfortunate for Seb, the reserve driver. But he will now be down into P9, which will mean it's a P8 to P4 DRS train. 5 drivers involved in this DRS train now. As the gap up ahead, Sem and Jakku, it's now 6.2 seconds. This stage of the race, you would think the hards are better, but Sem is still managing to use the somewhat grip which is left there in those tyres, and he is able to extend the gap to Jakku. The gap between Oscar and Jakku currently is staying in and around the same area of around 2.5 seconds to 3 seconds. It's been like that for most of the race. The same is also for Jimmy, and the gap between Oscar and Jimmy, it's been set in around that 3 second area as it stands, as BR4 has been gaining rapidly there on Jimmy, but is too far behind to look for any potential move on the WR Esports driver, the driver who's currently also rocking the medium compound of tyres. Alpha Gully struggling to stay in that 1 second range. We might see Alpha Gully fall out of the DRS range. He's going to have to push this whole entire lap. However, going deep into the corner will definitely not help him. As actually Stellis and Jordan are going to potentially do some fighting here, because Stellis has went off track. Alpha Gully's out of this 1 second range. Stellis also very, very close to being outside the 1 second range too. So we might potentially see here a massive split between all the 5 drivers who, of course, were involved in that DRS train just the one lap before. Is Alpha Gully looks, he has not got DRS now, but he's going to look to try get DRS onto the main straight. It will be very, very close, and he's having to push his car to the limits to try get in that 1 second range. Will he be able to do so? It looks like he will quite comfortably as well. He managed to find a few temps there in that final sector, and Alpha Gully will be getting DRS. However, Stellius won't be, and that's actually because Stellius is now into the pit lane. Stellius is going for an undercut, which is what we love to see. We love to see some different tyre strategy options here. So Stellius going on to the hards, that of course will be to the end. It's 16 laps in. He has went for what, a 2-lap undercut, which is very interesting to see. Of course, that will benefit him when everyone else pits, but it definitely won't benefit him at the end of the race, where his tyres will be much older and much more less grippy than others on the grid, especially like the current hard component tyre drivers, who are of course going to be on those grippy medium tyres at the end. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there between those drivers, as the gap at front, Semen Jakku, it's still 6.5 seconds. It's extended even more now. So it's very interesting to see what is happening there. Sem may be looking to pit somewhat soon. It'll be interesting to see where he comes out when he pits, and he's going to be in some quite fresh air. He's going to be between Jordan and Seb as it stands, because of course, like I said previously before, the pit loss time is 20.5 seconds, so that means he will come out in between that gap between Jordan and Seb, as Jimmy is actually going to be doing that too. He will be now going out in between a gap, I believe, as he is now going to be going into the pit lane. He'll be, of course, going onto the hards. He's going for a 1-lap undercut as it stands, as there goes Seb. Actually, not between Jordan and Seb, because he was further behind, actually. Stellius could be close to beating Jimmy here. Stellius is gaining on Jimmy. Of course, these two drivers were very close in that DRS train, and it doesn't look like Stellius has gained much time, however, by doing an undercut. So maybe the undercut at this track isn't the most powerful of options. It's interesting to see how there hasn't been much gained there. However, just quickly going back to the front to see what's happening here. Sem will definitely be looking to pit soon. He's 1.2 seconds off his lap time, and that's only in the first and second sector. He's 1.2 seconds off his fastest lap, of course. This is now the optimal strategy for Sem. Will he do it? Yes, he will. So Sem is going to be into the pit lane now. This is the most optimal strategy you can do, going from the medium to the hard compound tyres. He will be into the pit lane. Jakku will follow him. Jakku nearly bends it in the pit lane, as we saw there. He drifts into the pit lane. He is going to go for a monumental undercut on the hard compound tyres, as he would have probably ideally been looking to pit in 2 to 3 laps time. So Jakku going for an undercut, but of course pitting at the same time as Sem. Sem now exiting the pit lane. Jakku also following him. Seb is going to be very close to Jakku here. He potentially could be side by side with him into turn one. It'll be very close between these two. We'll definitely see some fighting. Seb, however, of course, still has to pit, so maybe only for a lap or two, depending what Seb wants to try do for his strategy. But we now see Oscar leading the way, as he is, of course, on those hard compound of tyres. So he is, of course, followed by then BR4, Alpha Gully, and Jordan, as Dankos has now retired in the pit lane. So as it stands, all the drivers who are currently racing will be getting points. So ideally, you just want to continue driving and you're scoring some free points, which is very nice for the drivers. But when it comes to commentary wise and seeing some battling, it's not really the greatest. As we just saw there, and there is Inyo picking up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. Is Oscar and those into the pit lane? Yes, Oscar is in, BR4 is not, Alpha Gully is, Jordan is not, and Jordan's still on the medium tyres. So Jordan potentially going for medium soft. We're going to have to wait and see. Is Oscar and Alpha Gully double stacking? Thankfully not. The reason why I'm saying that is because, of course, we're in the multiplayer cars, so potentially they could have been put as the same teammates and there could have been a double stack. Thankfully, there is not though. However, Jakku, look at the undercut which he has got on Oscar and the drivers behind. It's a monumental gap. Even Jimmy has got ahead of Oscar. So all of a sudden, Oscar's off the podium and Jimmy is now in P3. So that undercut for Jimmy, of course, going from the medium to the hards, has definitely worked compared to the drivers going hard to medium, because now Jimmy will be able to defend a potential podium position from Oscar. However, it will be very tough for him to do that because, of course, with the different tyre compounds, the hard compared to the mediums, they are very, very different indeed. So I'm not entirely sure what will happen there, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see for the DRS straight, which will probably be the main area for the overtakes. As Jordan is gaining on BR4. Jordan is staying out. So, yeah, at this rate, Jordan is going medium soft. I'd be very, very surprised if Jordan goes to the hards at this point in the race. So, a medium soft, I like to see some different changes, and that's what I said. As BR4 is also staying long on the hards, BR4 could potentially be going hard soft, which is the slowest strategy by mathematical numbers. It's the slowest strategy at this track, so I'm not entirely sure what he's doing there. Seb has entered the pit lane. He's got a fast second time penalty, and he retires. So Seb's just picked up a few too many penalties for his liking, and he now retires. He will not be picking up any points. I don't know why he would retire. He would continue racing, and you're scoring 3 points. I don't entirely get that. Like, look at Nerzinho, he's 10 seconds behind, but he's still continuing because he knows he's going to get points. As however, Jordan has picked up now a 3-second time penalty. He's had 3 track limit warnings, and that, of course, will drop him behind Sem. He still has to pit though, so when Jordan will come out from the pit lane, of course, when he exits the pit lane, he will be in that somewhat of a DRS train as it was before, as Jordan stays out one further lap. Sem does get DRS, BR4 is in, so funnily enough, all the hard compound tyre drivers are now into the pit lane, but Jordan, who is on the mediums, isn't. So it's interesting to see there as Sem is going to look to probably try to take the lead again from Jordan. Jordan isn't giving him it that easy though, as he does a little bit of battling there with Sem, but Sem is now back up into the lead of the race and has a 7-second gap nearly to Jakku, currently at 6.4 seconds. It's a monumental gap to Jakku. However, Jakku is of course on those mediums, Sem's on the hards. But will the gap from the first stint be big enough for Sem to stay ahead is the question, as Oscar has actually gotten past Jimmy there, and that is through turn 4 and turn 5. It's an unusual place to get an overtake done, but Oscar, who's on those medium company tyres, is now passing up into P4, and he will look to try chase down Jakku potentially of course, he's on 1 lap old, fresher tyres. As Jimmy is trying to crucially hang on to the DRS here of Oscar. He doesn't want to lose it, but Oscar has a full entire battery. So Oscar clearly has just been doing the rare pace, as of course he'll be looking to try chase down Jakku for a potential P2 as Jordan has sped into the pit lane. Unfortunately, he's now on 8 seconds of penalties. He is going on those softs, but now it's going to be so unfortunate for him, because now he's going to fall so many positions if he decides to make the positions up with those softs. He will be 8th position. He will have a monumental gap to gain to the drivers ahead. He will have to put the tyres to the limit, as he has a 5.4 second gap to gain to the drivers ahead. So it'll be very interesting indeed to see what happens. But I mean, really, the main only battle which we can really watch right now is this battle here between Oscar and Jimmy. I guess you could also soon include Stellius and Alpha Gully, potentially even BR4, as they are, of course, all gaining onto the back of Oscar and Jimmy, who currently sit P3 and P4. I'm just looking constructors wise. Sem, of course, in the McLaren is going to be scoring some good points today for them. The past drivers, though, are going to be gaining a crucial amount of points here today, 12 and 8, I believe. So they're going to get 20 points, which will make that gap much smaller to the teams ahead of Oscar, of course, being in Aston Martin, so they will also gain on the drivers. But it looks like McLaren will go up into P1 as it stands with Sem, of course. Alpine could. Where is Jordan? Jordan is P8. So actually, as it stands as well, Alpine will go up ahead of Red Bull as well. AlphaTauri is P6. Alpha Gully, which, if I'm correct, is I believe 5 points. So, wow, we're actually going to see. I believe it'll be McLaren, then Alpine, then Red Bull, and then just closely followed by AlphaTauri, then Haas, then Aston Martin. So the Constructors' Championship battle is going to get so interesting into these final few rounds, in which hopefully we will see the attendance improve, I hope, because of course it's not great seeing 13 driver grids. This is of course the lowest we've had this season. We're in round 10 of 12, so hopefully for the final 2 races at China, and we don't know yet for the final Grand Prix, but hopefully the attendance will be much higher. Hopefully we can be near a full grid, because it would be absolutely beautiful right now to see high numbered grids. Of course, with the game being a bit buggy and whatnot, it somewhat makes sense that, drivers aren't racing as much, because Codemasters is Codemasters and they mess up on the game again, which leads to us having to use multiplayer cars. I don't know how they do it, but they do it somehow, as Jimmy, of course, has the DRS open and using the slipstream as well of Oscar. He's just patiently sitting behind, as BR4 and Alpha Gully actually make a switch. BR4 is, of course, on those new mediums. He managed to get past Alpha Gully. Will also look for a move potentially on Stellius. Will he turn ERS on? No, he's just going to use DRS, and he's going to potentially look for a move around the outside, which will turn up into the inside, as Stellius is still there. But BR4, is he going to get a position done? Yes, he will. Is Alpha Gully going to look for the position? Yes, he will. He does a weird send there on Stellius. He makes Stellius correct the car going into turn 6, and Stellius manages to actually hold off Alpha Gully just there. I thought Alpha Gully got past, but no, he managed to hold him off. However, now BR4 has gotten already a 2 second gap to Stellius near enough. So BR4 is actually going to be gaining on to Jimmy and Oscar, and we could potentially see a 3-way battle for P3 in this race for one podium position. It will be very interesting to see if that does end up happening. As I'm just looking to the front, I think this gap between Jakku and Sem, I mean, Jakku is gaining, but I mean, they're just all cruising really. Jakku and Sem, they're just getting P1 and P2. I mean, you can't say much else about it. They're just cruising to P1 and P2. Jakku is 6 seconds behind Sem, but has nearly a 6 second gap to Oscar. So I mean, it's cool to see, how much pace they have, but when it comes to, battling, we're not getting much. Jimmy's fallen out of the DRS range now as well of Oscar. So literally the only driver who's now got DRS will be Jordan, who of course will overtake Stelius very very soon. That's actually a time penalty there for Jordan, who goes goes massively wide. He's up to 11. Oh yeah, Jordan's on 11 seconds now. He's got 6 seconds of time penalties plus 5 seconds, as potentially another warning there as well from Jordan on as he tries to catch up to Stelius. Of course, it will be an easy move for him. Stelius swerves to the side to let him by because he doesn't want to fight it, and it completely makes sense. He'll just tuck into the slipstream and try to stay in the DRS range of Jordan. However, of course, it will be tough because that soft to hard difference is so big. Probably around a second slower a lap on average, I would say, is Jordan is even getting DRS now on Alpha Gully. So Jordan will definitely be climbing up, but of course that 11 seconds will not help him whatsoever. And apart from this, there's not much happening now. Jimmy's massively fallen off the back of Oscar. These hard tires are definitely not working because Jimmy's now 2.6, now 2.7 seconds behind Oscar. And of course, just a few laps ago, he was in the DRS range. So yeah, definitely something happened to Jimmy. Maybe just the hard tires not working as he would have wanted them to. And now this is potentially going to give BR4 a chance at a P4 finish. Of course, he started in P5, so it would be a good finish for him. Jimmy would have fallen down 3 positions at the end of this race, so it wouldn't be great for Jimmy if he loses out on this position to BR4. BR4 is nearly in that 1 second range of Jimmy ahead. It's just going to be crucial to whether or not he will be able to get it in the upcoming laps, because of course once you have it, you're going to be absolutely flying. It'll be so interesting. As Jordan, I've just realised Jordan has messaged in the Discord chat. I can't drive. I forgot. I forgot to fix my braking settings, and now I can't drive. So, unfortunately, maybe that's what describes how Jordan has, of course, 11 seconds in time penalties because he's having braking issues. So yeah, that is definitely unfortunate for him. As I mean, a P8 finish though is still somewhat good, but definitely not for Jordan, who is of course in P4 in the championship. He would have definitely looked for more points, as BR4 is now onto the back of Jimmy. BR4 right now as well could even potentially catch up to Oscar, because the pace right now is looking very, very good for BR4, as I believe he'll probably fly past here Jimmy on the straight. He's using a slight bit of ERS, and yeah, of course with Slipstream and DRS, he's going to fly on by here. So there he goes, does a little wave to Jimmy, and he is off and up into P4. Now going to hunt down Oscar. Of course, it's BR4 actually locks up into the first corner. Of course, we'll have to take somewhat different lines, but I mean when we compare Oscar to BR4, Oscar's P5, BR4's P3. The gap between them is 21 points. However, Oscar has been on form recently, winning last week, now in P3. He will definitely gain on Jordan, potentially actually overtaking Jordan for P4. I'm not entirely sure, but it is looking good for Oscar, as in keeping a P5 finish for the F8 Championship potentially. I just want to mention this: the gap between Sem and Jakku closed down by 1.5 seconds. So I'm not entirely sure. Is using a slight bit of his ERS right now, but the gap was 6 seconds. It's now 4.6. So I think Jakku. I mean, who is the fastest lap right now? It is. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong thing. I need to do this. It's currently Jordan on the softs. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, they're not going to be getting fastest lap. It's just Jakku trying to show his pace. That, he has some pace in the car, and he shouldn't be counted out, of course, for a P2 finish. Also, just trying to make Sem's win a bit less impressive, I guess you could say, because Sem's led every lap except for when he pitted and Oscar led. Apart from that, he's led every single lap. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. Of course, the gap still becoming a lot smaller. Actually, I've just realised this. X Esports 1 2, Sem hasn't changed his name yet or anything, but Sem is recently just signed for X Esports. Jordan now picks up another time penalty. He's down to 14 seconds. Of course, braking issues, like I said, so you can see him having, not the greatest of times in a few of the corners. But yeah, Sem is X Esports Jacko Heim, then left CPI, became Oscar Furtheim, now changes his name to ETA Oscar as he gets picked up by ETA Esports team. BR4 Esports team? I don't think so. I definitely could be wrong though, but I don't believe BR4 is in any team. Of course, Jimmy is a part of WR. Jordan is not part of any team as it stands. Of course, Alpha Gully, as you can see there, is a part of TGT Esports. Stellius has GFO in his name. I don't know if that's an esports team, but in this instance, I'm going to say yeah, Stellius is a part of the GFO esports team. And Nerzinho, currently a part of none, but rumours going about he could potentially be signing very soon for one. Apparently, they are announcing him in the next few days because he has apparently signed for a team, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there with Nerzinho, who's, of course, not had the greatest of seasons. He currently sits P14 in the championship. 11 points to his name. Today he will get, 2 points, so he'll stay P14, I think, as it stands. But, he's had a few unfortunate moments, like, I believe it was one or two races where he's been in and around P4, P5, and then he's had an incident and he's ended up being at the back. Those are the kind of races. The two battles to watch right now is Jimmy managing to stay in the DRS of BR4, and then Alpha Gully being in the DRS range of Jordan. Alpha Gully won't do much fighting with Jordan because of the time penalty difference, and then Jimmy will battle with BR4 because, of course, he will try look for that P4 position. Because as it stands right now, there's no time penalties for either of them, so he'll try get up into P4 and look for, I believe, 2 more points in today's race. As don't forget everyone to like the stream and of course subscribe to the PSGL channel as well. I'm seeing the likes go up currently on 8 likes. Thank you everyone who is just tuning in. Please stay, however, because of course it's quite an interesting race at the end here. The interesting part is that battle here for P4 as it stands. Jimmy having DRS and Slipstream, also ERS, but he's not using, but he is gaining onto the back of BR4. Will he look for a move? No, he will not. He will decide to wait. Looking at the ERS differences, they are on both very, very similar amounts. Jimmy on 20, BR4 just below 25. So it will be very, very close between these two drivers in these final few laps as it stands. But yeah, it's very, very interesting because now with Sem pretty much looking like he's going to comfortably take the win today, he will now go into the championship lead for, I believe, actually only the second time this season. The first race and now will be the times when he's took the championship lead. He hasn't had it since round one, I believe, where of course he won in round one, was then tied with Jezzer in round two because they went. Sem won the first race, Jezzer was P2, then Jezzer won the second race, Sem was P2, but then after that, Jezzer has kept the gap to Sem, as I'm just checking here. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Sem held the championship after round 1 in Brazil, after round 3 in Britain, and has not held it since, but will look to be holding it into the next round at China after, of course, this very. As sorry for any notifications if anyone heard the noises. So yeah, I mean, there's not much to really watch right now. Alpha Gully's just staying in the DRS range of Jordan. He'll end up overtaking him because of the time penalties, and Jimmy will probably look for a late minute attack on BR4 here, trying to get up into that P4 position. I imagine that would be my guess, looking at the time gaps as it stands. So yeah, it's just interesting to see what the race may unfold as, I should actually say. As Jimmy is closer than he has ever been, so potentially may look for a move now. We're going to ride on board with him. He is very close. He may look for it now down into turn 1. Is he? Yes, he is. So Jimmy now up into P4 on the third final lap of this Grand Prix. BR4 looking to try retake the move potentially, looking for a potential switchback. Is he going to use the DRS? No, because actually Jimmy is, because Jimmy has the benefit of the DRS. That's of course because of the double detection. That's well, not the double detection, but that's because of the detection point on the straight just before the first DRS stint ends. The detection point is there, so Jimmy was just waiting to overtake, and he now goes up into P4 and will try battle it out with BR4 for P4. The amount of times I've said that today is unbelievable, but like, it's a funny amount. As I'm just seeing in the chat here, a few problems of other tiers when it comes to the PlayStation not working with them for the commentary, so I don't know. Um, I wonder if I can. Can I not up the quality from 360? I cannot, but that's interesting because I have it set to 720 and also 1080, but it's not working. So yeah, I don't know what that is. Jimmy manages to hold off BR4, but this, of course, will look to be a strategical play here by BR4 as he will wait, of course, for, I imagine, the main DRS straight to re-overtake Jimmy and try hold on to that P4 position, as, of course, we will soon be entering the final lap. Sem just come around the final few corners now. We'll be starting that final lap very soon. Of course, he has Jakku following in behind. There we go. So we're now starting the final lap of the Grand Prix. Sem has controlled this race the whole entire time. The only time he hasn't led, as I had previously mentioned, is when he had pitted and Oscar hadn't. Apart from that, Sem has kept a very comfortable few seconds gap and it's been extending ever since. BR4 has gone past Jimmy, like I said. He has looked for that move. However, he's locked up into turn 1. So this is the important battle to watch right now between these two for P4 and P5. Will Jimmy look for the move? Maybe soon, potentially. I'm not entirely sure. Jordan is slowing down. Has he run out of fuel? No way has Jordan run out of fuel. He just slowed down a lot. I don't know. Maybe contact with Avagale? I'm not entirely sure because I saw yellow flags. And that was it though. However, we have to go back to the front because it is the ex-esports driver of Sem It'll be the third time of him leading the championship this season, as he will now lead the championship ahead of Jesler going into China next round. As Sem across the line wins in Mexico, he takes the championship lead from Jesler for the third time this season. And this will give us a much more intense championship battle at the end. Jakku ends up in P2. Oscar manages to gain a monumental amount of time to Jakku in the final few laps, but it will only be a P3 finish for the newly ET8 driver. It's then BR4 managing to beat Jimmy to the line. BR4 gets P4, Jimmy gets P5, Alpha Gully is then in P6, Stella is P7, and then it will be Jordan in P8, then followed by Nerazinho in P9. As I think Nerazinho's actually ran out of fuel. Has he? Yes, he has. Nerazinho has run out of fuel. So he's just strolling across the line now. As that was the weirdest 10-second time I've ever seen in my life. As he now goes across the line. So, that was a very interesting race indeed. As driver of the day is Alpha Gully. I would agree, of course, I would have said Scabby, but unfortunately, of course, he had that spin where I jinxed it. But there is Sem holding the Dutch flag proud, the XA Sports driver, on the top step of the podium. Not for the first time this season, however. He has been on that top step many, many times. It is now his third win this season. His last one was actually in round 3 of Britain, so it's been a long time waiting there for Sem, who takes the top step of the podium for the third time this season, as Sem wins Mexico, followed by Jakku 5.8 seconds behind in P2, followed by then the new ET8 driver of Oscar. SMBR4 in P4, and then Jimmy in P5, then followed by Alpha Gully in Celis in P6 and P7, Jordan in P8, and Nerazinho in P9, rounding up the points. And then we have Seb, Dankos, Scabby, and Felix, all being the drivers who unfortunately DNF'd during the race. So, thank you everyone for watching today's Grand Prix here at Mexico, and definitely do be tuning in for next week. Unfortunately, not able to do any interviews, but hopefully for the final few rounds, I will look to try to do interviews, because of course it'll be interesting to see and get to speak to the championship rivals, say Sem and Jesler. Maybe if Jesler's here next week and Sem and they both on the podium, maybe we invite them in ahead of their then battle into the final round. Still yet to find out what track it is. If I was to guess, I would say Abu Dhabi, but that's only a guess because I'm not entirely sure. But definitely tune in for the next round, of course, which will be at China, so the exact same time next week, Monday, 7 p.m. GMT for PSGL F8. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching today's race. We're just going to run one quick ad for our main title sponsor, GT Omega. Then it'll be the outro, and then we will be gone. So thank you from Cameron Dunn, and we'll see you all next week for China. Good night, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.
Desperately trying to hang on. He's got the inside. Oh, here he's through on the left-hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jarno Opmeer wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.